Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode in Season 4 of the People in Fundraising Nonprofit Podcast Series. And today I'm very excited to welcome industry veteran and the 2011 Ann Castle Award honoree from NEDRA, Marianne Pelletier. Good morning, good afternoon, Marianne, for you.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Thank you for being a guest today. Marianne, before we get into our questions, if you could please just tell our audience who you are by title, company, where you're located, and where they can find information on your company.
Thanks. Yeah, so I am the managing director for the Staupell Analytics group, and we're in upstate New York, Ithaca, where there's a hotbed of university intellectual fabulous stuff. So our book sales are fantastic.
Nice.
And I'm sorry, I forgot there was the third question already.
Where people can find information on.
Yes, the thing I should be telling you the most about, right?
That's
But
okay.
we're at www.staupell.com, and we hope your audience will come and join us for our water cooler chats once a quarter.
Terrific. Yes,
Great way
thank
to get to know
you.
us.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. You and Ruthie Giles, who
Mhm.
works at Staupell and is a season 1 guest, have done a great job with those water cooler chats. I've been on a few, and it's well worth people's
Thank you.
time.
And Greg Duke, our Duke of Excel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. So thank you for that intro, Marianne. If you could please tell our audience in a few minutes how you entered the fundraising profession, and then we'll go from there, please.
Yeah, it cracks me up. It says, in 5 minutes, please tell us how you got into the fundraising profession. I'm like, okay, it was 1988.
You can take
Picture
as
it.
much time as you'd like.
No, actually, I did library work in college. I ended up working in libraries after I graduated, and the last library I worked in was the Harvard University Development Office, where I discovered prospect research. I got to study wealth,
Awesome.
including how the wealthy behaved, and I was hooked. That's how
Awesome.
I got into it. Yeah.
And I know that you have worked at institutional fundraising shops
Big ones.
before.
Yeah. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about maybe some of those stops along the way, but then what led you to co-found Staupell Analytics, please?
I think that sometimes we think, we want to move on because we're frustrated by what we can't do, or we're frustrated with who we're working with and stuff. When I look back, every time I moved on to a new job, it was because I wanted to learn a new thing. So when I was at New Hampshire College, I was responsible for the whole fundraising program, but then they implemented this new software, and I was really interested in the software, and I really got into analytics. It was when Pete Wiley did his article on model behavior that set off the whole. I mean, Lawrence Hensey was already doing modeling, but Peter got us all interested in it. And so I took the class in my MBA program to do it. And the next thing I knew, I was at a software firm.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when I came back to research, it was my experiment in urban living in Pittsburgh, working for Carnegie Mellon. Brilliant people, very ambitious. And when it was time for me to come back to New England, I ended up in New York, which I like to joke is just far enough away that my mother can't call me up and make me spend all Sunday doing chores for her, but still New England enough. Yeah. But I got to be at Cornell where, I got to build up the research team, help them with a campaign, and then wrap up my last couple of years in the business intelligence office where I learned all about visualization. I even picked up SQL. I picked up Perl, which led me to learn R. So it was about what I was ready to learn next. And now I was ready to take all those skills and see what I could offer back and see what it was worth. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, interesting. And when
Yeah.
did you co-launch Staupell, please?
So the funny thing is, Tim, in 1993, I had my boss move to the Grand Tetons and say to me, "Can you be my grant researcher?" And that launched my consulting career.
Oh, okay.
So I did prospect research on the side for a good part of my career, except when I was with DataTel, the software firm, because they kept you pretty busy. Um, But yeah, I was doing some form of consulting on the side. And in 2012, my wife, her best friend, and I were all on a birthday trip, and we just decided it was time to found Staupell. And so
Hmm.
we did. And Stobbs is my wife's last name. Pelletier is my last name. My friend's Patty Patel, so there's L in there too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. But and that's when we said it's time for me to make a formal company.
Yeah.
Start with the whole registration and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's interesting. Thank you. I've had a few guests who have done something similar, spent time in institutional environments,
yeah,
went out on their own, and it's
yeah.
a special admiration I have for people like you that are like, I've built up the skills, I've put in the time, and now I'm ready, as you said, to give back and kind of within your own confines, your own
Right.
company. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and you're right that there's a huge trade-off, right? So I cover my own health insurance
yeah,
when my wife isn't covering it. At the same time, if I don't work, I don't get paid. There's no
yeah.
vacation time, sick time. I can do whatever I want all day, but there's an immediate consequence to that when the bills come in. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right. The risk is all on me. The what I get it back for it though is that I don't have to convince people who don't know how to do my job to let me do my job the way that I feel is right. You know what I mean? I can do those things that I consider to be important and those things that I consider to be good creative work. Sometimes takes years for the market to catch up.
Sure.
Now I know how Lawrence Henze and even David Lawson felt. It's like I invented this thing, and everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" Right? But and then sometimes we come up with stuff where people are like, "Where you been?" Right? So
I
yeah, but it's the heart of an artist is that I've got. It's like I'm just going to keep working and keep producing content, and then I'm going to keep putting it out there. We hired a marketing team to help with that part because I was terrible at that. Yeah.
Excellent. And you mentioned marketing just now.
Mhm.
And you earlier had talked about the water cooler chats. This may be a nice time. So
Yeah.
if people are interested in joining a future water cooler chat, do they register, email,
Yes. You go to
username?
stoppel.com and all the way down to the bottom of the page, after three buttons that say make an appointment with Marianne now, because we have to do that poppy in your face thing. But at the bottom of the page, there's a sign up to get our newsletter. Yep.
Awesome. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Or
Thank
just
you.
they can email me, Marianne@stoppel.com, and I'll take care of it.
Dynamite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this next question is about your work with Staupell. I'm just
Mhm.
curious, and without naming clients or project dimension,
Right.
um, what are some of maybe a handful of the most common queries that you get concerning uh,
Mhm.
donor modeling, data mining, other business intelligence questions from
Yeah.
clients and maybe even prospective clients?
So the question we've gotten over the last couple of years is we really need to be able to hone down on the prospects that are going to see us and are going to give to us. Can you please help us sort out the portfolios? And even Emma Hinkie said that from Betts Whaley Flessner, like when I was at APRA last year, she's like, we're force feeding the pipeline like an oil spill
Mm,
with our capacity ratings, and our clients are feeling it, right? And so she must clearly get approached to help with that, and we're getting approached to help with that as well,
mm,
especially with Ruthie's expertise.
yeah,
So those are the biggest queries that we're getting.
I see.
Yeah.
Excellent. And in terms of your client base, is it
Mhm.
mostly domestic US, international?
So far, it's all domestic US. There's
Okay.
some discomfort with Canadian organizations working with us because we have the Patriot Act. And the Patriot Act says if I have client data on my machine and the FBI or the whoever decides to come and look at it, they can.
Okay.
So we're very thoughtful about whenever we talk to Canadian clients, we talk to them, if you're going to engage with us, we've got to do all the work on your server so
Mm,
nothing crosses the border. But yeah, but the education stuff, our self-paced courses online and our coaching hours and everything, the payment systems can cross borders. We take Bitcoin, we don't care. So
yeah,
it's all about whether or not I'm going to get up at 2 in the morning and talk to somebody from Australia. And I would,
sure.
to talk about data mining. I'm up at 2 in the morning thinking about data mining anyway. So, you know,
Yes.
yeah. But
Yeah,
all that's available, right?
terrific. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a guest last week, Chirian Koshi from Iowa, and he said, yeah, sometimes I wake up, and he said the exact same thing. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and
Right.
I'm thinking about coding, and so I just get up and code for a bit. So,
It's interesting in your dreams when the little people move in a certain direction and you can just tell that they're writing SQL for you. There it is with, this, select that. Yeah, you can just
yes.
tell. Yep.
Oh, good. So thank you for the last few responses to these questions. And
My
what I
pleasure.
often do, Marianne, with guests to kind of keep it fresh and insightful to learn about the professional as well as the person is I draw quotes from authors and artists.
Hmm.
And I thought of you, and as I was putting this questionnaire together,
Hmm.
I don't know if I've asked any other guest this question yet, but it comes from a book by Brene Brown. And she once remarked that, quote, curiosity's reason for existing is not simply to be a tool used in acquiring knowledge. It reminds us that we are alive. And so
Hmm.
for you, you've been in the fundraising field for 3 decades.
Yep.
Again, the variety of experiences you've had.
Yep.
What keeps your curiosity going?
Yeah.
Time?
I I love Brene Brown. I listened to her book, Daring Greatly.
Yes, yeah,
And I love the whole notion of Theodore Roosevelt because I understand exactly how he feels. Always that pent up energy. What's the next thing? What's the next thing?
yeah.
And I love her giving me some grace on the messy middle.
Yes.
Right. So my core answer to your question is whatever I'm doing, I gotta love it enough that even when it's time to wash the dishes, washing dishes is the most miserable chore to me, right? When it's time to wash the dishes, I'm willing to do that so I can get back to the thing I really love,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, like you said, curiosity is for its own sake for me. I even had a client mention, he says, it strikes me that you want to know something, and once you know it, you're done.
Mm.
And I realized when he said it, it's true that like even when I was figuring out baseball games and betting on baseball, and then I stopped doing it. And a friend of mine said, "Why'd you stop doing that? You could make money." I said, "Well, I figured out how to do it, so I got to go now."
Oh,
You know,
interesting.
you know?
Can't well capitalize on that expertise.
Well, the season's coming back, so I can try again at talking myself into staying through the messy middle.
Do you have a particular team you root for or follow?
No, no, the Red Sox really broke my heart when they sold all those players right after their big pennant win or their World Series win. So
Yes.
I don't think that any of them are like the Pittsburgh Steelers are really devoted to their players,
Mm.
and baseball just doesn't do that. And so I don't like that about it. And yeah, and I see that recently there was a player that everybody was startled that he got traded someplace else and in basketball. And yeah, and I'm just like,
Yes.
you're treating your athletes like commodities, and
Yes.
I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
But the whole notion of curiosity is that it's the place where I feel stuck is if there's nothing that I can do,
Yeah.
right? So, and I get to practice that at airports, there's nothing you can do, the plane's late, right?
That's
So, like, no, there's something I can do. I can eat sugar and sugar even more, but there's always something that can be done,
yeah.
always something. And I even say that to the college is having really financial difficulty. They're bringing a vice president. She calls me up and says, "How can you help me?" But I don't have a budget, and I'm like, "It's always something you can do.
Yeah.
Start with this and this and this, and when you get some revenue back, ask them for some of that back to hire me to do some more."
Yeah.
So it's the MacGyver part of it that I really like, and that's why we're fundraising operations, but our favorite client, everybody says, what's the size of your favorite client? And we've dealt with clients that are huge, all the way to clients who have 100 people in their database.
Wow.
It's a client that's ready to make a change into something better,
Yes.
usually because they have to. And so we deal with the frustration and we deal with the no, I need it now. And we handle all that because we love to solve problems. And that's why, excuse me, that's why the four of us who are here are actually invested in this company.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the individual and the collective experience that you four have
Yeah.
um, obviously you can apply that to the clients. I also would imagine that the curiosity factor again of like how can we help this client, which has 100 people in their database,
Hmm.
how can we help this client that has 100 times that many prospects in
Right.
their database? It must feel like there's something always fresh and curious about the work you are doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only thing that stayed the same for every client that we've spoken to is the client would say, "You don't understand. We're different."
Yes.
That's the consistent piece that's been through every client we've worked with. Yep.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah. But we had a client who called us up and said, we do stewardship every year. It's really complex. We do it out of crystal reports. And I said, the first thing out of my mouth is, have you ever heard of Power Automate? She
Mm,
goes, yes. And, our programmer here is trying to learn it, but we don't have time for him to do the whole. I said, okay, we'll rent you Wilfred. He's, a Power Automate expert, and we're working through that with them.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very good at starting things. I'm not very good at getting through the middle, and I'm good at finishing things. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
That messy middle again.
that's the middle. Yeah, when Ruthie figured that out, she put us on Asana, and now I have tasks broken down.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, yeah. Always go with the person who loves doing it. Yep.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, play to their strengths.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Um,
appreciate that Brene Brown quote.
yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. This last question here, I want to preface it by just saying that it was a real pleasure to meet you in person at APRA Prospect Development this past summer in Seattle. We were up on the rooftop. It was the donor search
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep.
after hour party
Yep.
um, and that's
Yep. I
really
ate a lot of nachos that night. Yep. Yep.
And Ruthie had also talked to me like you really should invite Marianne on, and talking with you in person that at that point was also really rewarding.
Thank you.
So this podcast in part is a living history of nonprofit leaders by the nonprofit leaders themselves. And so, I'm also very curious, getting back to that last quote from Brene Brown. I'm
Mhm.
just fascinated to learn stories about my guests. And we have about 10 minutes left, Marianne. So,
Mhm.
what's a story of yours that you hope will be part of your legacy in the development world that you'd feel um, pleasure and a sense of accomplishment to have that part of who you are and what you've done in this profession?
I don't think there's a single big story that was my big aha moment. It's more, I feel when I'm thinking about this question, I have two parallel lines in mind. One is it's a very good feeling to get content out
Hmm.
because long after I'm gone, people can have access to that, and that's going to outlast, my body, my ashes, my name. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, but the other piece is when I'm up presenting. I think it was APRA Seattle when the room got filled up so much. Was it APRA Seattle or the one before? The room got filled up so much, people were standing out in the hallway to hear about what I thought about reinventing capacity ratings.
Mm.
And I'm up there and I'm intimidated by that many people. As often as I do public speaking, I'm still very nervous before I start, right? But I'm telling the story and the audience was right there with me. And then I started seeing that, oh, and then the writing down.
Yeah.
So that feeling of I just shared something with you and I gave you the power to do something. You're not helpless anymore. You can do something next. That's the feeling that I like. And when I'm teaching, that's also the feeling that I like. That
Mm.
we did our in-person conference, our FIT conference in October last year, and we're doing it again this year. Plug. And what we do with these conferences is that for breakfast and lunch, everybody in every workshop sits together in one room and gets served lunch. And so they get to do bonding and networking,
Yeah.
right? And tell stories about each other and other things. And that's a genuine connection kind of thing that you can't like at APRA Seattle, like we took up a football field. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we actually that was the first one day, and then the rest of the time we all had to wander all over Seattle looking for food. But So you only really get to hang out with like the two people sitting on either side of you, and you can't hear anybody else. But then in these sessions, people get to talk to each other and hang out and make friendships. And then there's a piece where they go, I still don't get it. I just don't get it. I still don't get it. And then I go, I'm going to try a different way, right? Talk about creativity. I'm going to try a different way. I'm going to try a different way. There it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a series of those stories that I think I like the most.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that. I have one story from the NEDRA conference. It must have been around 2010 or so, and
Hmm.
you were presenting and you were talking and I found it very fascinating. You were talking about trying to determine the revenues, the assets, and then giving a capacity rating for a privately held ice cream stand. I think
Mm.
like and if it was like Concord, Lexington area of Massachusetts, and I liked that place as well. And I'm like, that's really cool, and it stuck
Yeah.
with me all these years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was the one that I was doing. I forget their name. Do you remember their name? They're out in Westford.
maybe that's it. Yeah,
Yeah. Something farm.
was it Kimball Farm?
Kimball, yes, Kimball Farm, yes, yes, with the Sundays, this big. And
Yeah.
then when I presented that on private companies again, I was presenting on the Purity Ice Cream Company that was actually for sale up here at
Oh,
the
okay.
time. So they have new ownership. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But see how I found a way for it to stick in your head because now you're thinking about ice cream, but you're also thinking about assets, debt,
Totally.
owner percentage, right? But it starts with something sweet. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's stuck with me all these years later.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My college degree is in English, and I studied to be a poet. And so I could tell that when I use metaphors, that they're actually helpful teaching tools and
Absolutely.
communication tools. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, Marianne, this has been delightful having you on this program today. I want to be respectful of your time and um
Appreciate it.
yeah, I just really feel a sense of honor to be able to share some of your story with our audience.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
you are well regarded in the prospect development world, and I hope to see you at PD in Baltimore this coming summer.
Yeah, I don't know if we're coming. I don't know if I'm coming,
Okay,
but yep, but I hope to.
awesome.
Crap.
Right.
Eat that.
Well, thank you for your time today, Marianne. And for our audience, you'll be able to find Marianne Pelletier's conversation on various platforms in late March of 2025. LinkedIn, every Monday, there's an interview that airs with a link to the conversation on YouTube, then a link for the audio only portion for Spotify and Podbean. And thanks to Luis Diaz of the Donor Participation Project, who is sponsoring my new website. You can find Marianne's conversation there at peopleinfundraising.wordifysites.com. Thank you all for your support. And Marianne, have a great rest of your day and your week.
Thanks so much, Tim. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.